I noticed Jasper's voice sounds an awful lot like Dana's as well. The migrant crisis now shattering records as the number of unaccompanied minors crossing the border reaches its highest level ever. This is the Faulkner Focus. Good morning. I'm John Robertson for Harris Today. The Biden White House still blaming the Trump administration for the crisis as the president has called the surge of migrants, quote, seasonal, saying nothing has changed. But the month-to-month numbers tell a very different story. They have steadily increased for nearly a year and then skyrocketed in February and March. DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas met with border officials in Texas yesterday, but denied access to those meetings to reporters. Senator Ted Cruz tweeting, closed press. Once again, Joe Biden has tried to hide his egregious failures at the border from the American people. Hashtag hiding Biden. Meanwhile, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the Biden administration is blocking state officials from entering a migrant facility in San Antonio to investigate allegations of sexual assault and abuse of minors.
The Biden administration knows about this. They knew about it yesterday because we shared the information with them, and yet still nothing is happening. And no, also, because it's happening there, it could very well be happening at these other child detention centers. So the Biden administration right now, they are now saddled with child sex assault allegations and doing absolutely nothing about it.
Governor Abbott will join us just a little bit later on in the hour with more on that. But first, we go to Alex Hogan. She's live in Mission, Texas, where Fox is getting an exclusive look at the crisis. Alex, you got to ride along.
Hi, John. That's right. In the early hours of the morning, we got that opportunity with Border Patrol, who explained the difference that they're seeing between policy and perception. Migrants who say they believe that the Biden administration will let them in, and then sending that message back to others in their home country. But this is a dangerous journey, and Border Patrol say recently they have found bodies in the woods here near the Rio Grande River, as well as children, not children in groups, but kids just traveling alone. And not only higher age kids, but even kids as young as 2 and 3 years old.
We had, from not too far from here, we found a young boy that died of exposure from heat exhaustion, 8 years old, and he had a little Pokemon belt on. And you see that, and you relate to your own kids.
House Republican Whip Steve Scalise led the delegation of 10 members to the southern border for this tour, and the group hearing the harrowing stories from Border Patrol of interactions with the cartel, recent rescues, and resources needed. Scalise sharing his message calling for the Biden administration to reinstate former President Trump's policies requiring migrants to remain in Mexico while seeking asylum.
He could reverse this tomorrow, and he won't come down and see it firsthand because he knows what's going on. And he said he put Kamala Harris in charge. She won't even come down.
Now, we will join this group of delegates on a boat tour with the Texas Department of Safety. Now, this is just one of these weeks and months that we've seen more and more migrants cross through. Just last month alone, there were 172,000 stops. That was up 71% from February. John?
Yeah, those Texas Department of Public Safety gunboats, they are quite a presence there on the Rio Grande, as are you, Alex Hogan. Thank you so much for that. Let's bring in Jason Jones. He's retired captain of the Texas Department of Public Safety. So the White House, Jason, is saying that this is just purely seasonal, that nothing has changed. But when you look at the numbers, 172,000 in March of this year, that compares to 34,000 in March of last year. Now, you could say COVID was responsible for that, but the high water mark previous to that was in 2019, where the number was 103,000. So we're about 70% above the worst to date. What does that say?
Well, it speaks volumes, and I think it really is a telltale sign of what's to come, because we're not out of this yet. We're just getting into it. You know, it just broke my heart to hear that an 8-year-old just was found deceased due to the inclement weather down there. And you have to remember, it's 101 degrees 2 days ago, and that's only going to increase. And so we're going to continue to see, as the summer months hit, more deaths of migrants trying to make a better life for themselves. But I will say this. The data shows us exactly what you're saying, and that is that the policies of this administration are not working. It's not a perception. It's not a feeling. The data shows it, and it's only going to continue to get worse. And, you know, border security truly is national security, and I know we're starting to hear that term a lot, but it's very true. I am also very concerned at the amount of fentanyl that we're seeing that is seized at that southwest border. To give you an example, in the first 6 months, CBP has already seized 5,500 pounds. Now, the reason that's significant and how it affects all Americans across this country is that in all of 2020, we only seized 4,700 pounds, and that was a record year. So when we're averaging now 88,000 overdose deaths, according to the CDC, we've got problems and we've got challenges that are directly connected to the Mexican cartels, an unsecure border, and we're seeing that across the board now.
You know, Jason, you mentioned the public safety aspect of this, including drug smuggling and other cross-border trafficking. Sheriffs, 275 of them from 39 different states, have signed a letter to President Biden on the border crisis, calling it a, quote, reckless effort to put politics before safety. And Mark Lamb, who is the sheriff of Pinal County, told us this. Listen here.
They are trying to come into this country undetected. We have no idea what kind of criminal history they have, what gangs they represent. Honestly, it's a disaster for us. These are staggering numbers. We cannot sustain this in our communities in these states, nor can you sustain them throughout these communities.
Sheriff Lamb talking to our Neil Cavuto there yesterday. So we have two different situations here, Jason. We've got these migrant families. We've got these unaccompanied minors who are coming across the border hoping to get picked up by the Border Patrol because they know that they'll get into the system and eventually they'll end up somewhere in the United States, either with a foster family or maybe reunited with some family members of their own. And then we have a group of people who are trying not to get caught. And we heard from Raul Ortiz, who is the deputy chief of the U.S. Border Patrol nationally the other day, that more than 100,000 people, these so-called gotaways, probably came into the country this year, and we don't know where they went or what they were doing here. We've also had MS-13 members who have been apprehended, as well as people who are on the terror watch list. So what does that say about the public safety and national security aspect of all of this?
It really is, and you're nailing it right now, because a lot of times what we focus on are what you're referring to as the family units. Now, the cartel by design, by design and the tactics they use, they will send those family units directly to Border Patrol in order to tie up resources. Mm-hmm. And this is where it gets really important, because the single males and single females, if you notice, you won't see those in those family units. And that's because the cartels are then smuggling upriver and downriver those individuals, along with the drugs and what we call high values, or those people who come from a country with a terrorism nexus, also known as special interest aliens. That's where they then get funneled. So this is why you see in Texas specifically those gunboats, the Texas Department of Public Safety, many other state agencies coming to help CBP at the border. And this is where I get very frustrated with other federal agencies. Where is the FBI director right now? Where is the Department of Justice, the DEA administrator, and many other federal agencies to stand up in front of the American people and say, we see what's happening. We are also going to provide air assets and different special response teams to help CBP as we're dealing with this in time and crisis, because Texas is doing a great job with the response that you're seeing and what we've been doing going back to 2014. But what about New Mexico, Arizona, and California? They don't have the resources that Texas does to be able to respond. And this is where these federal agencies need to be standing up, be transparent with the data and what they're seeing, and help. I will tell you right now, aircraft is a huge asset. Helicopters, the cartels will tell you when you're sitting across from them, it's the one thing in the sectors they can't outrun or get away from. Mm-hmm. And air assets are readily available. I just don't understand why the lack of collaboration is happening from these other federal agencies.
You asked Jason a lot of where is questions. Where's the director of the FBI? Where are the directors of these other various federal agencies? I'll add one to that. Where is the vice president who's supposed to be in charge of all of this?
Well said. We are in the middle of a massive crisis. The state of Texas has put up over $800 million for border security. We've got unaccompanied alien children dying and wandering through the desert. Yet we haven't seen the leadership come down and at least see what's happening. Look, I get there's politics that get involved in all of that, but I get very frustrated because we've got a lot of great men and women in harm's way that are down there with CBP. And as they transition from a border security initiative into migrant care, all the other layers that are usually not discussed, like human trafficking, human smuggling, weapons trafficking, drug trafficking, all that then immediately activates. And I'm going to say it right now, and I'll put this out. We're going to see a lot more overdose deaths as a result of fentanyl, because the cartels are doubling down on fentanyl. And that is not a drug. It's a poison. And we can see it in the overdose data. And again, that affects all Americans. And that's why I get frustrated, because Leadership is pretty simple. You just pick up a phone, you call Troy Miller with CBP, who's the current acting commissioner. I know Troy. And you say, what can we do to help you? I've got certain assets. I got certain capabilities. What can we do? It's literally that simple.
Jason Jones, great to get your perspective on all of this. Thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.